the things we know for sure is that just before midday, police were called to Hart Street, to a property on Hart Street, where they found a scene of multiple stabbings. A man shortly afterwards was detained by police, and they seized a knife as well. We know that children have been stabbed and injured in this incident. They've been taken to Alder Children's Hospital in Liverpool, which has declared a major incident in relation to these events. We know that two other hospitals, Aintree University Hospitals Trust and Southport and Formby Hospital, received casualties as well. The scene is very much closed down at the moment by police, as you would imagine, because it's a very serious crime scene as much as anything else. We know that lots of businesses on and around Hart Street have closed for the rest of the day, not necessarily on the advice of the police, but because out of respect for the injured and the victims of this appalling crime that's taken place on a sunny day in the middle of Southport, very residential area where this took place. The information that's coming in beyond that, because those are the facts that we know. Police have asked people to stay away from the area. Inevitably, a lot of journalists have gone to the area. Casualties taken to those hospitals I mentioned. A Taylor Swift yoga and dance workshop aimed at primary school children between year 2 and year 6 was taking place where the incident happened. So what's that? 7-year-olds to 11-year-olds is what we're talking about there, if we're talking year 2 and year 6. The organisers of the workshop have been approached for comment but haven't yet responded. Again, this is a deeply traumatising and uncertain moment for them, so I doubt you get answers from them yet. We haven't had much from the police even yet. The police did put out a short statement earlier on, which I'll read again in a moment, but essentially I'm telling you the detail from it in my conversation now. The Eye on Southport, which is a news journal there, said the incident happened at the Hope of Hart, Hart being the name of the street, H-A-R-T, at the Hope of Hart Children's Club. So that's been confirmed by a local news agency there. Journalist Tim Johnson of Eye on Southport says the incident happened at the Hope of Hart Children's Club. So summer holidays, of course, so lots of people will be going to summer play schemes and children's clubs, won't they? It's down a back street in a former warehouse building, this club. And Tim Johnson says, this is a journalist, says the victims, many of them were children, described at least one girl on a stretcher and bloodied because of her injuries. Her parents were running after her, he said. It was horrendous. I've never seen anything like it. There were so many police cars. It was a mass of blue lights. I saw ambulance men and women in tears in the streets. A local parent who didn't want to be named has told a Press Association news agency that his daughter is, in his words, traumatised by the attack. He said, my daughter was in it. She was traumatised. She ran away and she is safe. So, like I said, if this is year 2 to year 6, it's very young children between the ages of 7 and 11, primary school children or kids about to go to senior school. It's a very fast-moving situation. Multiple people stabbed on Hart Street in Southport. Let's talk to Chris Phillips about when an incident of this scale unfolds, exactly the kind of pressures that the emergency services, perhaps especially the police, in terms of organising it, are under. Chris is a former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office and a former Detective Chief Inspector in the Met. Chris, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. We've already heard from Southport Football Club that they have been in conversation with the police about using their facilities as a kind of central command, if you will, for these events, and who knows, maybe to help with casualties as well. Does that sound familiar to you, that you would need a central place where all information and decision making could take place?
Good afternoon, Sheila. Oh my goodness, what a terrible thing that's happened there. The police obviously will need to get control of the situation. The man himself or woman, whoever the suspect is, has been arrested, my understanding is. So
Yes.
so then dealing with a crime scene, and of course all the victims and the victims' families and things is just quite incredible. And what I just wonder what's happening to our world when children become the focus of
Of
criminal attacks
violence.
like this.
Well, I mean, you know better than me. Children are often the focus of violence in their own homes, and we just get somehow more horrified by it when it spills out into, and we don't know whether there's any connection to one of the children and this man. We don't know any of that detail yet. But you're right. The scale of it is truly. I mean, it sets you back, doesn't it, when you hear stuff like this?
It does, and of course the police officers are there at the scene, have to be as professional as they can with dealing with not only this suspect, but also the forensics and everything around to find out exactly what's happened, and why it's happened, and where they go next. Because at the end of the day, there are numerous victims by the sounds of it, and for every victim, there are other victims, the family of that victim that have to be looked after and dealt with, and the police are in the middle of all this, and at the same time have to work on this suspect to find out why he did it and what the background is of that chap.
And in terms of the mechanics of an operation like this, we talk there about local businesses offering their support as a base for whatever the police need it to be. Obviously, a place like a football club would have extra facilities like space, like medical equipment. That would be an obvious choice as a place to base your command from, or your on the ground command from, at least. There is a great deal to pull together and think about, not least isolating the incident as well, of course.
Yeah, forensics is the key now, I think, at the scene. But of course, you'll have all the victims' families and so many mothers and fathers and things running to the scene to find out whether their child is involved. And so you have to control that scene, work out, what is exactly has happened at that scene. Is there any CCTV, any cameras? And of course, then what we've got to remember, we don't know the background of the person that's
No.
done this, but why he or she has done this, and what is the motive, and theoretically, working on a worst case scenario of terrorism, then is there anyone else involved, and where they go with that.
There's also, I mean, perhaps more so these days, and I say these days, for some years now, just because you have apprehended one person doesn't mean that in the early moments of a situation, the police really don't know what they're dealing with in those early moments, do they? Is there someone else? Is it to do with terrorism? In which case, has there been a bomb planted? There's so much to consider in those moments.
There is, and the police will work out very quickly, the reason for this, or why they think. They'll come to some conclusions. Whether those conclusions end up being accurate or not is another thing. But of course, terrorism. You just can't believe that this could be a terrorist attack. But maybe it is, and if it is, then how did that come about, and who else is involved in this scenario? But the key thing now is the victims' families, the forensics, and of course the suspect themselves, who has to be questioned.
And you and I have spoken many times over the years, Chris, about the pressures on policing. The struggle is real, as they say, in day-to-day policing. But in a moment like this, I mean, all hands on deck, isn't it? I mean, all police leave cancelled, everybody involved, and I'm sure North West Ambulance Service as well.
Yeah, the emergency services have been stripped to the bone. There's no doubt about that. And policing is the worst case scenario, with officers leaving hand over fist. And what you end up with is a lot of people without a great deal of experience. And this is a time when crime is rising, and don't believe what the figures tell you. Violent crime is on the increase. More people are willing to take up a knife, as we've seen today, and the police are needed more than ever. And we do need to support the police, even when they make mistakes. It's important that we understand that the police have got a really difficult job to do.
Thank you, Chris, for joining me today. Chris Phillips, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. And just to reiterate there that we don't yet know the motives of this individual. A man has been detained by police. He's in a police station now being questioned, and a knife has also been seized. So we don't know the motivation of the person that did this. We don't know whether it involves terrorist motivation or domestic motivation or severe mental illness or badness of a very acute kind. We just don't know yet. So we'll leave the police to investigate that. We are expecting a police update soon. We don't know whether that will come in the form of just a written statement or whether it will be a live press conference. I mean, it is, it's needed, isn't it?